Good morning. I welcome us all to the seventh annual scientific conference and workshop of the Association of Medical Lab Scientists of Nigeria, Plateau State Branch. I would have loved to be physically present at this conference, but events beyond my control have not allowed me to be physically present. So I'll be making my presentation online, and I hope that all of us will be able to follow the presentation. And it is my hope and prayer that this presentation will be impactful to all the participants at this seventh annual scientific conference and workshop of the Association of Medical Laboratory Scientists of Nigeria. So my presentation is going to be simple, and I'll be dedicating this presentation to my daughter. Part of the reasons why I'm not physically present at this conference, we were on our way home for the funeral of my mother, and we had an accident on the way, and my beloved daughter, Blessing Poven Obamei, went home to be with the Lord. She departed this earth on the 10th of June 2021, and her younger brother, is critically ill at the ICU, FMC Yola, and so we've not been able to return back home to Jos all this while. So I'll be dedicating my presentation to her memory. This is what she would have loved me to do. She loves to see Daddy present, and if she was here with me physically, she would have said, Daddy, go ahead, present, don't stop because of me. And so I'm dedicating this presentation to her. She was taken after me. She was following my footsteps, but she departed this earth. My presentation summary is, as you can see, I'll be introducing us to the subject that we'll be looking at. We're looking at the fundamentals of scientific research and publication, the place of the medical laboratory scientist, the fundamentals of scientific research and publication, the place of the medical laboratory scientists. And so I'll be introducing us to this subject. We'll look at the preamble to authorship, why publish, who is an author, maybe make some comments on authorship types. We'll look briefly at the art and science of writing. We'll see how ideas come, maybe some writing techniques, journal layout, and an admonition to resist plagiarism. We'll suggest some practical writing strategies. We'll look at rewards of authorship. We'll look at authors' time killers, some things that stop people from writing. We'll also see how we can archive publications. And we'll make some comments on checking your citations. And time permitting us, we'll look at some recommended journals where we can publish, make some comments on that. And I'll be laying some emphasis on the medical lab scientists. And then we'll conclude our presentation. I'm currently in Yola, Adamawa State, Nigeria. We had a little controversy during the early days of the admission of my son at the intensive care unit. The controversy arose from the fact that my wife had done some tests for the blood group of my son. 2 or 3 laboratories reported that his blood group was O positive. And then when we came to the intensive care unit, they did the blood group test and found that he's B positive, just like me. And then my wife said no, because she was the one there with them before I joined her. And so a controversy arose. Is he O positive? Is he B positive? And so I had to call the doctor when I got to know about it. And the doctor rushed that night to the laboratory, get the medical laboratory scientists to repeat the blood group test. And they found that he's B positive. The doctor was so confident that he said, this test can be done anywhere. Interestingly, this matter even attracted the attention of the highest management at the Federal Medical Center. Well, the controversy was settled. The Federal Medical Center Yola was right. My son is B positive. Previous laboratories that said he was O positive were wrong. Well, I don't know what happened. Now, this little background at the beginning of my presentation tells you how important the medical laboratory scientist is in medical practice and in research. Now, by the time I discovered this controversy, my son had already been transfused with blood from a donor that is B positive. Imagine if the medical laboratory scientist at the Federal Medical Center was wrong, what could have happened? Just imagine what would have happened. Imagine if we had gone by the results of those previous laboratories. Imagine if we had gone by their results and transfused O positive blood to my son who is B positive. Also imagine what could have happened if he was indeed O positive, and then blood from a donor that is B positive was transfused to him. Imagine giving B positive blood to a patient that is O positive. See how important the medical laboratory scientist is. I'm glad that the medical laboratory scientists we met at this particular hospital knew what they were doing. And this is just a background. We'll be coming back to this a little later when we really talk about the importance of the medical laboratory scientists when it comes to research and the validity of our publications. Now, the secret of writing is writing in secret. We're talking about the fundamentals of research and publication, the place of the medical laboratory scientists. You want to write, you have to learn to start writing in secret. The secret of writing is writing in secret. Hide yourself in your office, in the lab, at home. Find somewhere secluded and begin to write. There is no way to know how to write without writing. Somebody said the first thing that reading teaches us is how to be alone. And the first thing that writing teaches us is how to be alone. To get a secluded place. To be alone, to begin to write. Now, Henry Wadsworth Longfellow said something very important, and I want us to look at it and think about it. The heights that great men reached and kept were not attained by sudden flight, but they, while their companions slept, were toiling upward in the night. So you want to be a great researcher? You want to be a great writer? You want to impact your world positively as a medical laboratory scientist? You want to be like the great medical laboratory scientists of yesteryears? You want to leave your footprints on the sands of time and be remembered for generations to come? The secret is diligent work. While their companions slept, the great medical laboratory scientists were toiling upward in the night. While their companions slept, the great researchers, the great authors were toiling upward in the night. While their companions slept, the legends, the great men we talk about today, we read about, we hear about, were toiling upward in the night. Barack Obama set a world record, I would say, while in office as the President of the United States of America. Effectively, whoever is the President of the United States of America is one of the busiest people on earth. Probably the President of the United States of America is the person you will look at as the President of the world. Very tight schedule. So many things to attend to on a daily basis. But in spite of his extremely busy schedule, Barack Obama, as President of the United States, wrote an opinion piece in the Journal of the American Medical Association. He became the first US president to author a science paper while in office. Now, this is important for us to think about, because some of us will say, oh, I'm so busy, I have no time to write a paper, no time to do research. I'm in the laboratory from morning to evening. I have things to attend to. I have family. I have meetings. I have so many things to do. So I don't have time to write. I think we can learn from the former US President, Barack Obama, that no matter how busy you are, you can create time to do research. You can create time to write. You can create time to publish. And why must we write and publish? Why publish? Why write? Why do research? Well, because we do not want to be stagnant in our profession. We do not want to be like the men we're seeing on the screen, jumping, raising their hands, stamping the ground, but they're still in one place. We want to make progress in life. If you don't do research, if you don't publish, you're not going to advance forward. At best, you will just be a small local champion where you're working. At best, maybe they will just know you as one of those good medical laboratory scientists. But when you write, when you publish, You leave a legacy, a lasting legacy. You pass your knowledge to the world. You transfer your knowledge to future generations. You join the conversation of experts in your field. You advance the cause of science globally. And that is why we must write. That is why we must publish. Who is an author? Simply defined, somebody who writes is an author. Anybody who writes is an author. It depends on what you're authoring. You might be writing a paper, a journal paper, a book, a document. It could even be that the person writes a newspaper article, magazine article, whatever. If you write, you're an author. But we are talking here in terms of scientific writing, which is more rigorous than writing for a newspaper or some other forms of writing, because scientific articles have to be peer reviewed. They need expert opinion to be accepted. When you write a scientific paper, you have a lot of hurdles to cross to get your paper accepted and published. The editors are waiting for you. Some papers, indeed many of them, will not cross the editors. When the editors are satisfied with your paper, they pass it to reviewers. And it goes through the rigorous reviewing process by reviewers. 1, 2, 3 more reviewers in some journals. And the paper might be returned back to you to revise or rejected by the reviewers without asking for any revision. It goes through a whole process, from editorial review, peer review process, and all that before your paper may be accepted and then published. There are 4 sides of an author that I have, will I say, invented. I'm the one that I just came up with this, what I call the 4 sides of an author. A good author should have these 4 sides. A person who is a good author should have foresight, should have insight, should have hindsight, should have eyesight. To be a good author, eyesight is the basic. You should be able to see the knowledge you want to pass across in writing. What is it that you want the people to get? What do you want the people to receive? You should also have foresight. You should be able to see into the future of what impact what you're writing will be to future generations. And you should have insight. It means a good author should be writing something that is reflective, that people can reflect upon, and he also reflect upon what he's writing, internalize it before you write it down. Understand what you're writing. Have a deep understanding of what you're writing before you write it down, because if you don't have a deep understanding, it is unlikely that your audience, your readers, will have that deep understanding of what you're writing. Hindsight is looking back at the past. What you're writing, others have written in that field, others have passed through that field. What are the mistakes they have made? Don't repeat those mistakes. What can you add to what they have written? What have you learned from them? So to be a good author, you need these foresights. You need eyesight, you need foresight, you need insight, you need hindsight. Academic authorship are different depending on the fields, but we will not talk too much about other fields. We just focus ourselves on authorship in medicine because this is our interest. And authorship in medicine is very narrow. Before a person can be regarded as an author of a medical paper in any medical journal, scientific medical journal, there are conditions that must be satisfied. You don't just take your friend's name and just put it there as an author. No. The person must have contributed substantially to the conception and design of the study, the acquisition of data, the analysis and interpretation of the data. So it is not just everybody that can be an author. The person must satisfy this condition before you put his name on a paper that he's one of the authors. The person must have taken part in drafting or providing critical revision of the article. Don't just put the name of your boss there because he's the boss and he doesn't know what you even wrote about, what you're publishing about. The person must have provided final approval of the version to publish. And this is very important. This next one is very important. The person must have agreed to be accountable for all aspects of the work in ensuring that questions related to the accuracy or integrity of any part of the work are appropriately investigated and resolved. So if there is plagiarism and your name is listed as one of the authors, and you said, oh, it's a mistake, I did not read the paper, they just put my name, I just agreed and allowed them to put my name, I didn't know it was like this. No, you have to be accountable. Because if there is a problem with that research, you're going to be held responsible. You'll be held responsible. So, authorship in medicine is very strict. If somebody is being dismissed from his or her job because of academic misconduct arising from a published work, all the authors of that paper are guilty. So don't allow anybody to just put your name as an author of a paper. And don't even allow honorary authorship or ghost authorship that is common in certain fields. Now, very interesting, let me show you a paper with more than 5,000 authors. Have you ever seen a paper with 50 authors, 100 authors, 1,000 authors? Well, let me show you one that has 5,000 authors, over 5,000, actually 5,154 authors. They authored this particular article in the year 2015. If I show you this article, you will see that the pages that carry the names of the authors is even more than the paper itself. So from here, it's just names of authors. From here, from about page 10 to 33, it's just names of authors, names of authors, names of authors, names of authors. 5,154 authors took part in this particular journal article. It was a major article that involved several organizations, companies, institutions, individuals, collaboration, etc. I want you to think about it. As you're thinking about it, let me quickly mention that the trend now in science is multiple authorship. There is rarely any scientist that writes an article alone now, except maybe a review paper. Even a review paper, it's rare to find single authorship in science, especially medical science. So this means that you should start networking with other people. If you want to be a good author, you want to do good research, you want to publish, have a wide network of people in different fields, experts in different fields related to your field, so that when you want to write, you can collaborate with them nationally and internationally. The art and science of writing. Isaac Newton said something, and I quote, "If I have seen further than others, it is by standing upon the shoulders of giants." And this is why it is very important. I just talked about collaboration. If you want to be a great author, collaborate. You want to be a great author, look at what others have done in the past. Hindsight. If I have seen further than others, Isaac Newton said, it is by standing upon the shoulders of giants. In science, nobody is an island. Science, it's like a house. Everybody keeps contributing a block or two or more and keeps building the house of science. And it keeps getting better and better and better and better as the years go by. Science was not as advanced as it is today as it was 50 years ago, 100 years ago. There was a time when organ transplants were impossible. But today, it is history. We do it. There were times in the past, many years ago, when people died of all manner of diseases. But now, we take care of them with antibiotics. So, medical science generally keeps evolving, keeps growing, keeps advancing, developing, becoming better and better. The art and science of writing. Writing is like handling a serpent. This is me in Malaysia. I think this was in the year 2015, I think, handling this python. This is a live python. This is not a rubber python. It's a live snake that I'm carrying. How was I able to handle this snake? Why was I able to carry this python? Because I know the secrets of the python. And I do not have too much time to tell you some of the secrets of a python. But I could carry this python, put it on my neck, because I know his secrets. I know the weaknesses and the strengths of the python. You want to be a great author, you want to be a great writer, a great medical scientist, do research, publish. You have to know the secrets of writing. And we had said at the beginning that the secret of writing is writing in secret. We have to know the tricks in writing, in doing research, in publishing. We have to understand the do's and the don'ts, what we should do, what we should not do. And how do we do what we're supposed to do? We have to know it to be able to be good authors, we also need support of others. You can see how this little family, the father giving support, you would think that the mother is doing everything. But if the father loses his balance, the mother will come crumbling to the ground, and so also the baby may be hurt. The baby could even lose her life. So we need other people. We need collaborators. We need other researchers. We need mentors. And even mentors need mentees that they mentor for us to be great scientific authors, to be great researchers, to publish quality work. Now, when you're doing research, and research begins with an idea before you begin to write anything, you must have an idea of what you want to research on and write on. And these ideas can come like a flash of a light. In the year 2014, we had the greatest flood in Malaysia in December 2014, the greatest flood so far that Malaysia had experienced. I was in northeastern part of Malaysia, in a city called Kota Baru, the capital of Kelantan in Malaysia. And this flood was devastating. Lives were lost, properties destroyed, millions of dollars worth of properties destroyed by this flood in different states in Malaysia. And probably the worst hit state was the state of Kelantan, where I was based at this particular point in time. I was a senior lecturer in one of the universities there, University of Malaysia, Kelantan. And in the midst of this flood, as the flood was subsiding, because while the flood was on, all we were thinking about was how to survive, how to remain alive. How to remain alive. Should I fly my family? How do I get to the airport? How do we run? Because most parts of the city were already cut off. And food supply was a problem. For the first time, probably in the history of Malaysia, 3 days in Kelantan, there was no bread anywhere. Because the bakeries were cut off by the flood. Hospitals were flooded, clinics flooded, schools flooded, worship places flooded, houses. It was disastrous. But as the flood began to recede, one day I was able to get to my office, and my office in my faculty was located on high ground. It was one of the few places not devastated by the flood, but you have to pass through water to get there. And as the flood was subsiding, an idea just came to me. Why not document something about this flood? And I thought, yeah, what do I do? So I began to go around the city. I began to go around the city to take water samples from different parts of the city. And this brought about the article in Asian Biomedicine titled Isolation and Polymerase Chain Reaction Identification of Bacteria from the 2014 to 2015 Flood of Kota Baru, Kelantan, Malaysia. We were able to identify some bacteria not even previously reported in Malaysia that were found in this flood water. Now, I don't have too much time to talk about that, but you want to write, you have to do good research. You have to conduct the research. You have to have something to write. This is me in the lab during the course of conducting this research, to have something to write, something to talk about. So you have to conduct the research to have something to write. Go to the lab, be diligent, work day and night, sleep in the lab if necessary. Sometimes you may have to be in the lab 1 day, 2 days. You may have to leave the comfort of your home, room, your family. You might spend days sleeping in the lab. Do research. Do research. It's very important. Don't wait for inspiration. Don't wait for inspiration. Sometimes people talk about some who are born writers. Take a risk at writing. Well, my look as if some are born writers, are they? Everybody learns to write. Take a risk at writing. Write something. Write anything. Starting might be difficult, but read wide and just keep writing. Keep writing what you think is nonsense. Later it can be edited. You can get a mentor to take a look at what you've written that may be like gibberish, and then you find that something good comes out of it. So the most important thing is that you write. Start to write. Read wide. Genius, Thomas Edison said, is 1% inspiration, 99% perspiration. So perspire to acquire what you require in life. And in case you do not acquire, don't retire, refire. Perspire, sweat. Sweat it out in the lab. Sweat it out reading. Perspire to acquire what you require. Everyone is a genius, but if you judge a fish on its ability to climb a tree, it will live its whole life believing that it is stupid. This is what Albert Einstein said. So write. Write a little at a time. The best authors are habitual writers. They write, they keep writing almost every day. They just keep writing. For example, you can write 500 words a day, 200 words a day, 300 words a day, 100 words a day, even 50 words a day. You just keep writing. You just keep writing and writing and writing and writing and writing. And as you write a little at a time, you will discover that you've covered a lot of grounds. The 4 A's. Before you write, know the aims. What is the aim? Why do you want to write? Know the audience. You're writing to who will read your paper or book or the document or technical report. The awareness. And then articulate clearly what you want to pass across. When you write, this is what I call the 4 C's of writing, so readers can see what you are writing. When you write the 4 C's of writing, the first C is be correct. Never fabricate data. Make sure the complete recipe of your research, your methodology, everything that others need to know to replicate your work, make sure it is provided. Never fabricate data. I repeat, never fabricate data. Second C, be concise. You don't need to beat about the bush. Go straight to the point. You're a scientist, not a politician. So go straight to the point. Nobody wants to hear all the stories about where you were, what you were eating or drinking and all that when you're doing scientific writing. No. Just be concise and be consistent. Consistent, for example, in referencing, in units, in numbering. You don't mix different systems of units. You have to be consistent. You don't mix 2, 3 different ways of referencing in the same paper. No, you have to be consistent. And then the 4th C, you have to be clear. Logical, clear direction. People should see where you're heading to even from the beginning of your write-up. They should know the direction you're going. Logical, clear direction. And your conclusion should not be ambiguous. Write to communicate, to tell a story. Don't waste words. I've just said it. Avoid unnecessary jargons and acronyms. Avoid vague repetitions. Look at this example. that I'm giving. This write-up you're seeing is 4 lines. It says this paper provides a review of the basic tenets of cancer biology study design, using as example studies that illustrate the methodologic challenges or that demonstrate successful solutions to the difficulties inherent in biological research. In my opinion, some words are wasted there. I can shorten this paper to 2 lines, this write-up to 2 lines. I'll just remove some words and you have a shorter version of the same write-up. And this is the shorter version, just 2 lines instead of 4 words. This paper reviews cancer biology study design, using examples that illustrate specific challenges and solutions. It says the same thing that was said in 4 lines, but in 2 lines. This is an example of how not to waste words. Be straight to the point. Write as a scientist, not as a politician. Use the active voice when you are writing. Subject, verb, then object. Sometimes just subject, verb. Use the active voice. She throws the ball. She drives the car. Passive voice is object, verb, subject. Object, verb, subject in the passive voice. The ball was thrown by her. Mistakes were made. This is passive. In science, especially medical science, we use the active voice. I don't have time to talk too much about some of this. Hopefully, some of our speakers will be talking about some of this during the course of this conference. And so, I'll be quickly looking at other aspects because of time. But I have an example of using passive voice here and using active voice. Since you have the slides, you may want to look at it later. Now, use the power of software and internet. For your referencing, for example, you can use Mendeley, you can use EndNote, you can use RefWorks, you can use Zotero. Use the power of software. Use the power of the internet. Google Scholar has a lot of articles that you can use to enrich your research and write-up. Resist the temptation to plagiarize. Plagiarism is an unpardonable sin. An unpardonable sin in academics. So resist it by all means. Now we have softwares that can detect plagiarism. Turnitin, Viper, and many others. Resist the temptation to plagiarize. Don't copy other people's work. Don't cite other people's work without proper citation, proper reference. Spontaneous writing, let me just make a comment that it is wonderful. Sometimes you move around with your iPad or laptop or even your mobile phone. Ideas come to you, keep writing them, put them in writing. You have a notebook or even a journal or whatever, just jot down ideas. Spontaneous writing. Before you know it, you'll have written a lot that you can edit, modify here and there, and you have a very powerful write-up. A second eye. Let me say that sometimes we write and we just maybe publish or submit or give other people without somebody taking a critical look at what we've written. Sometimes you say, oh, I've written it and I didn't notice this mistake because you wrote it, and when you're reading it, you might not be reading what you wrote but what is in your mind, and you might not notice some mistakes. So give it to a colleague, if possible a senior, and say, please go through what I've written and see whether it is in line. And then you'll be able to have a good write-up. Typical journal paper in medical science has this outline. You have an abstract, introduction, materials and methods, results, discussion, a conclusion section with recommendation, acknowledgement, and references. Review papers don't have a rigid layout. Their own layout depends on the kind of review that you write. Because we do not have too much time, I'll have to rush a little bit. Now, plan a writing schedule. Don't just write haphazardly. Have a target that in 3 months' time or 6 months' time, I'll complete this journal paper or this book or this document. And then you give yourself a timeline. Maybe a week, I'll write the introduction. And, maybe another week, I'll write the methodology. Plan the writing schedule. Have a writing schedule. This is what happens in some top-notch journals. When you submit the paper, your paper may be rejected without peer review 58% of the time. It may be peer reviewed and later rejected 18% of the time. 3% of the time might be minor revision, major revision 14% of the time. 6% of the time reject with resubmit, it can be resubmitted. 1% of the time it might be accepted with maybe little or no revision, 1% of the time or less than 1%. Rarely. Many journals, top-notch journals, have a high rejection rate. Some of them have as high as 99% rejection rate. Journals like Nature journals, journals like the New England Journal of Medicine, high rejection rate. Those journals that have high impact factors, 30 and above, will have high rejection rates. Now, some practical steps you can use to really write. I'll invite you can join the 5 a.m. club. The 5 a.m. club is not really an organized club of meetings. No, there are people who wake up early in the morning and they write. The first 2 hours of the morning, they wake up and they write. And by 7 o'clock, they finish writing for that day and they dress up and go to work. You think they have not done anything, they have spent 2 hours writing already. And they do that almost every day. And you'll be surprised at how busy their schedule is, but yet they're publishing. Yet they're doing research. Yet you see their names in different journals. You wonder, how do they write? When do they have time to really write? Because you see them maybe the whole day into the night. You don't know that they belong to the 5 a.m. club. Wake up early and they write. And science has proven that early hours of the mornings are the best time to study, best time to write, best time to meditate, best time to put in your best, think, have ideas, and to write. So you can join this 5 a.m. club and write daily. Wake up early and write. There is what we call writing boot camps. Some institutions organize writing boot camps, and people come together, stay for 3 days, 1 week or more, and all they do is write. Shut up and write. Shut up and write. You are not allowed to do any other thing. It's just to eat, sleep, wake up, and continue writing. So we can organize this maybe in small groups, maybe in your department or unit, or those who work in a particular lab, those in a particular field. You can organize yourselves, come together. You have a methodologist, a statistician, you have a language expert, etc. You just sit down and you write. Everybody is writing, you compile it together, you give yourself a target. Shut up and write. No talking, you just write. Some people belong to the night club and they write at night. The rewards of authorship. It is wonderful to write. This was a book I wrote. It was published in Singapore 2016. Penful Friends. It's a book that I will still write another version of it. This is me on national TV in Malaysia as a result of a challenge that came up in Malaysia. A poisonous weed called Parthenium hysterophorus, and it brought some of my colleagues, myself, to limelight. It is wonderful to write. It is wonderful to do research. The rewards of authorship. It gives you visibility, helps you to become more visible around the world, especially in your area of specialization, expertise. It gives you self-fulfillment. You feel fulfilled. It helps you to leave a permanent legacy upon the face of the earth. If you've written, even if it's just one paper, imagine 100 years from now, somebody will read that paper. You've written a book, 200 years from now, somebody will pick that book somewhere in a library or in a museum or somewhere and read it. We're still reading William Shakespeare's books 400 years, 500 years later. It helps you to join the conversation in your field when you write. Of course, those in academics promotion, there also could be financial benefits. And probably one of the greatest things you're doing is transference of knowledge. You transfer knowledge to other generations. And this is one of the things I started learning to do, writing to transfer knowledge. This was something I wrote in Malaysia, and this was not even in a scientific journal. This is a newspaper. And the newspaper paid me for this write-up. I thought I should pay them for publishing my little write-up, but they paid me. This is an article written by my undergraduate student in Malaysia that I mentored and encouraged her. I said, write on this. She wrote, got this published in the Journal of Advances in Parasitology. Auto time killers. You know them. Facebook, WhatsApp, handphones, TV, videos, internet, meetings, all that. Procrastination, lack of planning, unplanned activities. You see this bottle? These two bottles on the right hand of the screen. You can see that all this did not fit into the bottle because of the way it was placed. The most important things in your life, do them first. If you pour in the sand and then you begin to put in the gravels and the stones, the space will not be enough. But if you put in the big stones first and then the smaller ones next, the next, then you have room to pour in the sand at the end of the day. The same thing here that did not go in was able to go in here. It depends on the arrangement. Plan your life in such a way that you can write, you can do research, and you can be effective in your research. Archiving publications. Please take a look at this. You can archive your publications in ResearchGate, academia.edu, in Mendeley, Google Scholar. And I want to emphasize Google Scholar especially because it is perhaps the most widely known database where you can archive your publications around the world. If you don't have a profile in Google Scholar, open one. Use your Gmail, open a Google Scholar profile, upload your publications there, and make them visible around the world. All right, so you can take a look at some of these from the slides that will be given to you. You can check your citations in Google Scholar. In Publish or Perish, it's a free software. You can check your publications there. Recommended journals, I recommend that you publish in good journals, reputable journals, peer-reviewed journals, top-notch journals. In short, if you can get journals that are listed in Journal Citation Reports by Thomson Reuters, I think now it is called Clarivate Analytics. Clarivate Analytics. Clarivate Analytics. Any journal indexed in Clarivate Analytics is a good journal around the world. If you don't know how to get them, just Google ISI, Impact Factor Journals. ISI. ISI is Institute for Scientific Information. Take note, there are some fake ISI. Some people get some other words that are exactly abbreviated as ISI so that they can deceive people around the world. And we have predatory journals that give false impact factor. They will say global impact factor, universal impact factor, and all that is fake. Those are predatory journals. Beware of journals that you just pay money, and within a few days or a week, your journal is accepted and published. I encourage people to publish in lots of journals that are free. They are free, but they have rigorous peer review and high rejection rate. Try to publish there. They're very good for you. If you don't know where to find them, you can go to PubMed journals, for example. Lots of good journals in PubMed. Google PubMed. Search the journals there. Or Elsevier journals, or Cambridge journals, Oxford journals. Taylor and Francis and the rest of them. You can publish in those journals. So be careful, beware of suspected predatory publishers or journals. The medical laboratory scientist is extremely important in research and publication. 8 May 1980, we eradicated smallpox from the world, and we celebrated. The WHO declared the world free of smallpox. How did we achieve that feat? Major feat. The first time in the history of the universe, a particular disease was eradicated worldwide. Medical laboratory scientists contributed immensely, greatly, in the diagnosis of smallpox, in discovering a vaccine for smallpox, in the eradication of smallpox from the world. The medical laboratory scientist is extremely important in proper diagnosis, because misdiagnosis can be very dangerous. Many years ago, we lost a colleague because of misdiagnosis. The doctors have been treating him for malaria and typhoid for weeks and several months until he was close to dying before they discovered that he had brucellosis, Malta fever, intermittent fever, brucellosis. Brucellosis manifests like typhoid with intermittent fever. So proper diagnosis is very important. How did they discover that it was brucellosis? Medical scientists in the lab, medical laboratory scientists just did a test in the lab, Ross Bengal plate test, and it was positive. It was positive for brucellosis. By then, the young man was almost gone. There was little they could do. Before they could do anything, he died. He died many years ago. Brucellosis rarely kills, but if there is no proper diagnosis, people will die of simple diseases that can be treated because they are not properly diagnosed. See how important the medical laboratory scientist is. You need accurate data for research. You need the medical laboratory scientists. We need effective therapy, medical laboratory scientists. We need to decide on correct and effective control measures against major prevalent diseases in the population, the public, so that we can guarantee public health. We need the medical laboratory scientists. Method development and evaluation, we need the medical laboratory scientists. The medical laboratory scientists provide lab support to clinical research as an investigator, as a main investigator, as a co-investigator. Sometimes people have research grants to do research. They need medical laboratory scientists to do research, do basic research, applied research. And I tell you, as a medical laboratory scientist, You're only limited by your own imagination. You're only limited by your own imagination. There is a lot you can do in research, a lot you can do in publication. Let it be that after this conference, every one of us will be publishing at least 1 or 2 papers in a year. In a year. And this is very easy to do if you can use the steps we've suggested. Write something every day. Get an idea. Go into the lab. Do some research as a medical laboratory scientist. And you will see that even the sky is not a limit. The sky will just be your beginning. And there is a big elephant. As I round up, there is a big elephant. A big elephant in the room. And what is that big elephant? It is that many of us are not writing. It is not because we don't have something to write. But we are not writing. We are not writing. We procrastinate too much. Or we think writing is for the professors or some other people. Or research is for those in research institutes or those who have some grant to do research. The big elephant in the room. We are not doing research and publishing. Some of us have done research, but we've not even written it. We've not published it. We've just left it in our offices, in our labs. We've just archived it in our files, and nobody around the world reads it. Nobody knows that we've done something fantastic. The big elephant in the room. The big elephant in the room. We are not publishing. We are not writing. Even though we have all the potential to do it. And so, we need to go back from this conference determined to write, do research, publish, do research, publish, write. Keep writing. Publish or perish. Publish and flourish.